welcome to Behind the Scenes. I am your host, Hector Montalvo. This show is dedicated to asking tough questions for you, the viewers. We bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Recently, the mayor for the city of Lawrence, Mayor William Lantigua, had requested the state to take over the Lawrence public school system. The state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, complied with that request and appointed my guest today, Mr. Jeff Riley. Mr. Riley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Can you explain to us what is a receiver and what qualifications is needed to be a receiver?
Sure. So receivership takes place when a district is deemed to be chronically underperforming. Commissioner of Education appoints a receiver, someone who has the authority of the superintendent and the school committee to go in, assess the district, and make change.
Okay, and what is the qualification for a receiver?
You know, I think previous experience, particularly in this case, of turning around a low-performing school. I was a principal of the Edwards Middle School in Charlestown, which was a success story for turning around. Central office administrative experience. I had an opportunity to oversee all the middle schools and K-8s in Boston, and a belief that actually change can happen.
Now, when the mayor had originally proposed the state for the takeover, it was understood that contracts would be voided out, the school committee would be dissolved. Is that the case?
Well, I think, you know, some of that could have happened. You know, I've always been kind of a local person, and I walked into a situation where, let's talk about the school committee for a minute. Many of these folks had spent a lot of their own money to be elected, and although I had the opportunity just to completely ignore them and not meet, I didn't think that was wise or practical or the right thing to do. So I've agreed to meet with the school committee on a monthly basis. It's televised. You know, we give them all kinds of information about the district, from budget to personnel decisions, and we want to make it as inclusive as possible. There are some people that believe a receiver is going to come in and solve the entire problems of a district. I think I've been clear with everyone that this is actually going to take a lot of people buying in to work together. And so the school committee, before I got there, had a reputation for not being particularly functional. I would say that there are a lot of new people on the committee, and that I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen so far from them.
Great. Now, you recently came out with a turnaround plan to help Lawrence get out of receivership. What are some of the steps that you've taken in the turnaround plan? Sure.
So I came at the end of January last year, which is a strange time to come, but in many ways it was a great time because I had the opportunity to really assess the district and figure out what's working and what's not. Despite some of the negative portrayals of the school system, there are a lot of good people inside the school system, and there are pockets of excellence. So we wanted to keep those, but we have to recognize, too, that it is one of the lowest performing school systems in Massachusetts, and so we had to make some changes. The turnaround plan has many components to it, but some of the bigger ones are the schools that are deemed level 4, chronically underperforming, the lowest schools in the state. We've basically taken some serious steps. We brought in educational management organizations. Many of them had, in their previous incarnations, were charter schools, to come in and take over the total functioning of those schools. Other schools, like the Frost Middle School or the South Lawrence East Elementary School, which are incredibly high-performing schools in Lawrence, you know, we're leaving them alone. We're trying to give them the supports they need. So that's that group. And then the third group are the folks that are kind of in the middle, that aren't performing at high levels. We're going to give them an opportunity this year to plan at the local level with their parents, with the community members, with the teachers and principals, to try to figure out how we can have a better school. This is a very different kind of plan than you typically see from a state agency in that it is so decentralized. It doesn't believe that the central office is the kind of powerful part of the component. Rather, it pushes the authority and autonomies down to the school level, which is something that's really not been done before.
So what are some of the other changes that was previously there that you thought needed to be changed, and why?
First and foremost, the facilities of many of the Lawrence public schools were just completely inadequate. We spent millions of dollars starting last spring over the summer to try to replace roofs, patch roofs, repoint, fix walls that were falling down, put new locks on bathroom doors. Just there were so many facility issues. This is simply there were simply schools that weren't suitable for our kids to be going to. And you need to create a learning environment where kids feel like, they can focus on school. My kids go to the Boston Public Schools, and the school they go to is in many ways like many of the Lawrence schools. It's almost 100 years old. It's not beautiful to look at, but they managed to keep it up and keep it maintained, and it's a great learning environment. And so we needed to get some of those things fixed.
I tell you, when we first heard that Mayor Lantigua was proposing this, there was a big outcry. A lot of people, especially the teachers union, were crying and complaining about what this is going to do with their contract. There was recently a bunch of teachers let go in the city of Lawrence, and only very few of them appealed those decisions.
Right.
Not what qualifications, but what was the process like to determine whether or not these teachers were qualified? Maybe qualified is not the exact word, but what kind of process was used to determine that?
What you're talking about, we called the receiver's review process, and we tried to look at a variety of factors to try to figure out who are we concerned about. So it may be attendance, it may be a history of discipline issues, it may be test scores. I mean, there could be any number of factors we looked at, and then we kind of created a list. From that list, we were very conscious that we didn't want people inside to go in and evaluate those classrooms because we don't know the history for whatever reason. So we brought in retired superintendents from urban areas to come evaluate their practice. I think we probably did 60 or 70 people we looked at. 10 were immediately cleared as being sufficient and satisfactory teachers. Another probably 15 or 16 were put on improvement plans. And other folks either resigned, retired, or were terminated because their practice just wasn't up to standards. I want to be clear that, I think my career has shown that I've spent a lifetime celebrating great teaching. But on the other hand, we can't say that all teachers are great. And we have to have a line where people need to be, good enough to be in the classroom. And I look at it like my own kids. Would I want my own kids to be in this class or not? And there are some kids that some teachers that just aren't doing right by kids, and we just couldn't have that.
Correct, and I agree. And the state came out, released their MCAS scores this past week, and we know that last year's MCAS scores doesn't reflect the doings that you're doing. But moving forward, how do you plan on improving those scores from last year to this year?
Well, I think bringing in some of these EMOs, although they're only phasing in one grade at a time, we're going to look at that as soon as next year to look at how they did. This is kind of a new day where we're actually going to hold people accountable. Additionally, if we get more level 4 schools, we're going to do whatever's necessary to fix the school, whether that means a turnaround model where only half the teachers can stay, whether it's a restart model where you have an EMO or what may have been a former charter organization come in and take over. We're going to do whatever it takes to try to get better results for kids.
And that will benefit because we know that here in the Commonwealth, Lawrence contributes zero to the education of the Lawrence public school systems, and the rest of the Commonwealth picks up that tax. So what type of accountability is going to be put into place to be able to help Lawrence start contributing to their education as well?
Sure. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, the accountability starts really at the school and the kid level, right? I mean, you're looking to make sure there is money that is sent to Lawrence to help make the school system run. Now, one of the little-known facts is not all that money actually gets through. Some of it is taken by the city, which is legal. Right. I want to be clear about that. It's legal. But we're one of the few districts in Massachusetts that doesn't get its full, what they call, foundation budget, which forces me to go out and kind of apply for federal grants and fundraise and the like. With that said, the money is there to get good results for kids, and we've got to do it. The reality is a lot of this money, almost all of it, as you say, is coming from state taxpayers. Obviously, I work for a state agency. We're very interested in making sure that we're holding people accountable.
Now, we know that children tend to do a lot better when when both parents are involved in their lives. What steps would you be taking to encourage parents to be more actively involved in the education of the children? Because that's an important factor as well.
I think there's no question. When I first came, a lot of people said that Lawrence parents don't care about their kids. Well, let me tell you, I've never met a parent that doesn't love their kid deeply. They may not always know how to best serve them and help them, but they love their kids. But what I really found was that we as a school system weren't doing a good job of letting people into our schools. We had kind of put up a wall, not in all cases, by the way. There's a few schools in Lawrence that do an amazing job of outreaching to parents and parent engagement, but many schools kind of have, a wall up that says, give us your kids, we've got them, we'll send them to you at the end of the day. And that's incumbent on us to have a mind shift where we've got to be more welcoming to our parents.
Now, let me ask you this. What can the students of Lawrence and the parents expect this new year under your leadership?
I think what you're going to see are, parents have already come up to me on the street just thanking me for fixing the buildings. That's number one. You're going to see added arts and enrichment programming. I don't know about you, but when I went to school, academics perhaps took a backseat to sports. And for some kids, it's arts or theater or what have you. And Lawrence has consistently, over the last few years, cut away that programming, which oftentimes hook kids into school, right? So parents are going to see more of that. They're going to see these new EMO organizations, with a very different philosophy that expect great things from kids. And I hope they're going to see a renewed commitment to welcoming parents into the school system. One of the things we're going to have open, we hope by January or February, is a parent welcome center right in the central office, where parents are able to come and visit, register, find out about different services if they need help with what have you, after school programming or the like, where they'll actually feel like they can come in.
And how would they get this information as far as information that you want to put out to them? Is there like a school website? Is there
We've
access?
created a brand new website. We're also going to be using the cable access in town to get out a lot more information. We've advertised in the local newspapers. We're really trying to get out there and let parents know we want them to be involved.
And besides the school portion of remodeling and keeping up to date, what else are you hearing from either the students or the teachers in regards to the 8-9 months that work that you've done
I
so
think
far?
the thing we've heard most of all is an appreciation that it's at the local level that schools are going to be able to plan to improve. It's not kind of this top-down, one-size-fits-all blanket approach to improvement. It recognizes that what happens in one part of town at one school might need a very different fix than what happens somewhere else. And rather than saying that I'm going to tell you exactly what has to be done, I'm interested in hearing at the local level what needs to be done and for them to come up with a good plan to improve the schools.
Now, we know that in the previous administration, the former school superintendent, there were talks about him having to take the superintendent's test. And there's accusations that it took him maybe 7 or 8 tries.
Okay.
How long did it take you to pass your superintendent's test?
I passed it immediately.
You passed it immediately.
Yeah.
So the people of Lawrence are getting someone that is qualified
Yes.
to do this particular job. That's great to know. Now, what type of accountability is there in place for the teachers that are not performing come next year on behalf of the taxpayers?
So we have a brand new state evaluation system that's been put in place. My assistant superintendent of teacher effectiveness used to run performance management in Boston and has a reputation for really focusing on teacher evaluation and improving people or counseling people out if need be. One of the secrets in education is oftentimes people that get tenure feel that they have tenure for life. And we respect teachers. I created a program to celebrate great city teachers, but we also have to hold people accountable. And it can't be just because you've been here for 20 years, you're doing great. We are going to be looking at people all the time.
And that seems to go to the case where the teachers were let go or either resign or whatever.
Right.
You can put whatever you want into that, but it does show that you are leading the effort to improve the city of Lawrence.
I think so. I mean, it's fairly unprecedented what we did. With that said, make no mistake, teachers are the front lines of what we're trying to do. 90% of my job is to try to support them, right? I have a history of creating something called the Sontag Prize in Urban Education, which recognizes the best city teachers from the Boston area and across the country, because most of my job is trying to help them do their job better. It can't be about teacher bashing, right? On the other hand, there has to be accountability, which is new, as I said, in Lawrence to some extent on teachers' evaluations, but really is not something that's done often in the Commonwealth.
Now, what about the teachers union? I know that they're probably so upset over the whole takeover because, again, it voids out their contracts and so on. How are you working with the teachers union where most likely they had most of the control for a long time?
I think it's certainly been a change. It's hard. But I think, we've tried to establish a working relationship that's productive. I believe the teachers union wants the best for Lawrence kids. We're not always going to agree, right? Certainly. But I think at the end of the day, the teachers union knows that I came from a school where I was a principal, which was an AFT, teachers union school, that was celebrated in the New York Times as the counterexample to charter schools, right? My kids go to a school which is an AFT school, and that I've been able to work with unions throughout my career. So it is kind of a new landscape. It's a new day, but I'm committed to working with anybody that wants to try to do better by kids.
Now, what about vocational training? We know
Sure.
we have the actual Lawrence VOTEC, okay, but what about some vocational training for those people that can't get into the vocational school and probably could be offered in the Lawrence public school system as a way to get them?
So it's something we've just started to explore. I have some background. I used to be the director of the High Tech Academy at a vocational school in Boston, so I believe that there are different ways to get academics. Anyone that's ever had to call a plumber or electrician knows that those are great jobs to have. And so I think you're going to see more of that in the future in Lawrence.
Good, that's good. So the children of Lawrence can expect, because that way it gives them some type of training if they can't afford to go to college or they don't decide not to go to college. So I'm glad to see that that is working. What else is involved in your turnaround plan?
There's a myriad of different things and targets that have to be hit. Underlying it all is a sense of accountability. Like we've set some pretty ambitious goals. We want to have more schools, double the amount of schools next year that are closing the achievement gap. When we use a metric that's pretty good called something student growth performance. When kids are hitting over 50 in that, we say they're closing the achievement gap. If they're below 50, that achievement gap is widening. So by the end of next year, we want to double the amount of schools that do that. Within 3 years, we want to be in the top 5 of all gateway cities. I mean, we've set some pretty ambitious goals, but I think we can do it. When I came here, many people told me not to come. When people find out what I do, I hear often, "Oh, good luck," but that hasn't been my experience. I think there's a lot of negativity surrounding the city, but when you look kind of underneath that, there's a lot of good things happening, and we have great kids. And so there's really, for me, every day I'm more hopeful about that we can get good results for kids, and that's what we're going to try to do.
And how we know that the governor will hold you accountable.
Sure, man.
How would you expect the people to hold you accountable while you're doing this turnaround plan?
I think in the plan there's very specific goals around test scores, facilities, adding arts and enrichment, parent welcome center, all the things in the plan I expect to be held accountable for.
And basically we know that the previous administration was not open and transparent with all the parents and basically with the taxpayers because of all the corruption that came out of that particular system. But how open and transparent will you be with any constituents, any parents, any member of the media, whether you agree or disagree with them?
We're trying to be as open and transparent as possible with everyone. With our school committee, we're as I said, I don't even have to meet with them. We've given them more information than probably previous school committees have gotten, and we're going to continue to do that. We also want to be treated fair, though. I mean, there are some people that have particular gripes for whatever reason and write things that aren't necessarily true, And so, we're going to be open with everybody, but with a sense of fairness.
And the state also implemented a new bullying law.
Yeah.
Is that still going to be in place in the Lawrence school system, or are you planning to
Yeah.
improve that?
We
or?
have, I would say, when the state came in and assessed the district, it was last year or the year before, what they found was the budget office inside the school system was very tight and open, honest, and transparent. And they found that the bullying policies were very tight and solid. And those were kind of the only two areas that were highlighted. With that said, it's an ongoing issue, right? I mean, it's something we have to work with our new teachers with all the time to be on the lookout for, and something we take very seriously.
Right. Now, we know that in the budget, usually there's money for books and so on.
Yeah.
Is there going to be enough money in the school budget now under your leadership where children could take home books? At this point, they're not allowed to take books, is our understanding.
Well, that's not exactly my understanding. There are some books, like when you talk about mathematics, the new program we have, they don't have like a textbook anymore. They have these workbooks that they switch up and go home. So that's a little bit different, but we certainly are spending a lot of money purchasing supplies and materials.
What about technology? What type of new programs will there be that involve
We invested more than $1 million in technology in classrooms over the summer to try to bring them up for teachers that don't have to use the chalkboard anymore. We've got really interactive smart boards and Mimeo machines to try to keep current with what's happening. So it's really important, I think, as you know, kids today are amazingly savvy with technology, and it's just part and parcel of what they do. And many of our younger teachers are from that same generation, and so it's a new world, and we've got to adapt to it. So we've taken steps to really improve the facilities, not just the roofs and stuff, but the actual technology inside of them.
Now, while you were implementing all these changes and your turnaround plan, did you take a look at any other district and see what type of stuff they do and try to implement that into your new policies? Or?
So I think we've looked across the country at different things that's happening. I want to be clear, we've seen schools turn around. We've never seen a district turn around. And what I saw when we looked at this very closely is all the turnarounds, districts, activities, or plans were all this kind of top-down model, whether it was in DC or other places that probably had great ideas, but it just didn't translate. And which is why our model is very different. It's a bottom-up approach, putting the power at the local school level. So we've tried to take some best practices when we can find them, but we also realize that this is kind of a new thing as well, and we've got to get this done.
Now, I believe you were appointed to receiver for a 5-year term?
3.5.
3.5-year term, okay. What is the expectation in those 3.5, and what happens after those 3.5 years? So,
as I said, I have specific goals that are in the turnaround plan that I've got to meet, and I'm being judged by the Commissioner of Education and the Governor and other folks. The Commissioner has always said this, he believes this is a 5 to 7 year process. My hope is it's a 3 to 5 year process. And, the receivership will end. And we've got to be successful for it to end, and kind of what we embed has got to be sustainable. That is, when the receivership ends, if I'm no longer here, are the results going to stay put, right, and not be rolled back or whatever? I'm very hopeful with what I've seen at the school committee level, despite, and again, people try to show me videos of previous school committee meetings, and I never looked at that stuff, but the folks that are on the school committee now are pretty reasonable, thoughtful folks, and we've been working in partnership. And so ultimately, the receivership will end, and it will be handed back to the school committee for overseeing the school district, and it will be returned to the city of Lawrence.
Now,
and obviously, the more successful I am now, the quicker that happens, and that's my goal.
Now, with the changes that you have implemented,
yeah,
what's the possibility of another administration coming in after you finish your job here and be able to undo what you have done if it's working? How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
It's a great question, and it's something that we're working on kind of ongoing. We want to be able to show that the positive strides we've made stay, but that's kind of to be determined in the future.
And
I don't
that's-
have a great answer for you on that
No,
right now.
but it's just a way to try to look at covering the loopholes. You
Sure.
know, we have legislators up in Beacon Hill that are attorneys. They all create laws, but there's
Yep.
always seems to be loopholes on those laws. So we want to make sure that the taxpayers are well represented and their interest is actually looked at. Now, you did mention that you would be open and transparent with all the constituents and so on. How can people reach you if they wanted to reach out to you or go to the office? Where do they find you? Where
Yep.
are you located?
We're at 255 Essex Street in Lawrence. You can email me at superintendent@lawrence.k12.ma.us. You can call the office. I don't have the direct line right now, but we can get that for you. We try to respond within 24 hours to parent concerns.
Great. Well, we'd like to take the time to thank you for coming in today to this show to talk about those particular topics. Is there any other thing in your plan that you would like the viewers to know and what they can expect?
Well, one anecdote I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago we had some parents who called me and emailed me about the lack of AP Physics and AP Chemistry at Lawrence High School. And in the schedule, it wasn't possible to offer those things. And within a week, we found a solution to that, and now we have a kind of digital AP class taking a virtual AP class where kids are actually working on the computers, taking the actual class and getting the credit. And so we encourage people to reach out to us. We want to try to work with them.
What about homework assignment? I know that, when I was a kid, I used to pull a fast one on my parents and tell them, oh, I have no homework today. Is there a way that parents can actually go in or a place where they can find what homework is available for them?
So currently that's done at the school level, so I would encourage parents to check with the principals on that because different schools have it set up in a different way.
Okay, so they basically contact the principals and
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, we'd like to thank you for coming in, talking to all the viewers and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in regards to your turnaround plan. We wish you a lot of success in doing so. We want to thank you at home for watching. Join us next time as we go behind the scenes to ask the tough questions, bring you their responses. We let you decide. Thank you for joining us.